Hi, it's Jerry Roberts back again. It's Friday, July 31st, and we're doing Newsmakers TV with two stars of the local journalism firmament, laboring in the lucrative field of community journalism, Delaney Smith from The Independent and Josh Molina, who writes for Newshawk. Thanks both for being here. So again, another week where it was kind of, we had the Rose Garden beer pong scandal and the sticks in the spokes throwdown between Oscar and Jordan, and tragic closing of Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. But everything kind of revolved around the virus again. Josh, I guess the loudest story was the debate, if you can call it that, at City Council about whether to enforce the wearing of masks. And in the end, they decided that they would, rather than require them, they would quote unquote educate people, which kind of made my head explode. We're like 6 months into this thing and, we're going to educate people about the virus, which sounds like the dumbest thing. I don't know what was the debate basically?
Well, they had an item on the agenda to decide how to proceed with mask enforcement downtown and throughout the city, but the real issue is downtown. And so the staff was going to the council to say, what do you want us to do? Because there are people in the community who say you need to be enforcing the fact that people are not wearing masks downtown, and there are others who are saying this is a voluntary thing. Most people are doing it. There's no need to start ticketing people. So that was what was up for discussion. And it opened a door to sort of widespread, wide-ranging conversation about a variety of things that sort of shed light on where people stand sort of deep down on this issue. And sort of one of the big things was that city staff said, hey, we were down there, 90% of people were wearing masks. Why do we want to ticket people? Why do we want Santa Barbara to have this reputation for being enforcers? It's a complicated issue. Most people are doing it. Why do we want to start ticketing? And so there's a dispute of that number, really 90%. Some people feel like that may not be the best snapshot. And that number was done from 11 to 6. It was not done 8, 9, 10, 11, midnight, when the bars are most active, or the restaurants that serve alcohol are most active. So that was the thing. There was a little bit of a controversy because Eric Friedman said that we should not be ticketing. And he cited the fact that he has a relative who we refer to as down south, who is against the ticketing of masks because it reminded her of 1930s Germany. And that sort of sparked Megan Harmon to jump in and say that, basically she says that's like not a good way to frame this. How can we have the conversation when you're comparing it to fascism and Nazi Germany? It's not a fair debate to frame it that way. And just because we may be considering more enforcement, you sort of tip the game over when you start to play by those kinds of rules.
Well, yeah. Delaney, you were watching, and you agree with me, do you not, that in any argument, the person who first compares something to Hitler loses, do you not? What was your take on that whole exchange?
I think it goes to what Josh said at the beginning of his remarks, which is that it really kind of showed what each council member deep down really feels about masks and mask enforcement. I think it kind of spoke volumes to what Eric Friedman, maybe how much he thinks masks may work or not work. I think, I don't know, that didn't really surprise me coming from Eric. His mother was one of the main protesters at the anti-mask protest a few months back.
Is that the one where they told you to take your mask off?
Yeah. So it doesn't really surprise me. But it is
the other thing, though. The other thing he was doing, he he was trying to make this numerical argument. Oh, we only have 44 cases, and all the cases are, you know, in Santa Maria, which is like so far away that it could never affect us.
Yeah. So the AA, that's totally like random BS, right? Like people work up north, they work down south. We have people who commute every day. But the other thing is it's not just the city who kind of has this attitude, though. The county does too. It's even the county, which does oversee Santa Maria, is very much anti-ticketing and anti-enforcement, and they want to just do education. Like I even just mildly asked about, are we going to step up enforcement now at the 2 press conferences ago to Greg Hart, and he was very immediately adamant. No.
Yeah, I don't really get it. I mean, the governor is that way too. I mean, Greg sort of just aped the governor through this whole thing. So, you know, maybe that's a piece of it, but it's like, oh, well, we don't want to ticket somebody for something like this, which is what? Spreading coronavirus. I mean, it's goofy to me. Josh, go ahead, finish.
It's the fear of confrontation. That's literally what Greg said. I think that's how a lot of law enforcement are feeling right now, is they feel like, especially in the kind of midst of Black Lives Matter, they feel like they don't want to upset people. But Greg kept saying that his worry was people are going to freak out, and it just wasn't worth the trouble of people freaking out and having confrontations over it. But that's kind of your job, right? As a law enforcement officer, you're going to enforce what the law is.
It's just goofy. And then we got off on the, Josh, the putting a stick in the spokes of the kids with the wheelies, and how that was equivalent to stop and frisk, and lots of other things. What was that Lincoln Douglas type debate about?
So one quick thing before I go there is to close the loop on Eric Friedman, was one of the things that Eric objectively, impartially needs to work on is to stop lecturing the public. And he did this whole thing. You mentioned the 44 cases. He went on a lecture of the public of like, I understand the data, and you should understand it this way too. And what elected officials, where they err is when they start talking like this. Mm-hmm. They really, the better ones, learn how to talk this way. Inclusive. They learn how to connect with their audience. And that was his problem. Can you imagine the mixed messages you're getting? We've got health officials saying wearing masks, and you've got a respected council member saying, it's 44 cases in Santa Barbara. Yeah. Why are we going to ticket? And so it's a difficult skill to be able to come out of yourself and sort of see yourself the way others see you. But that's something he needs to work on, because nobody wants to hear him recite the county data. Like, that's something that anyone can do. We need sort of leadership from that data. Now, to your other point, there's been a group of bicyclists who've, young people mostly, who've been riding downtown, and it's sort of a show. It's sort of like they're cruising, they're popping wheelies, and they are being seen downtown. And apparently this is becoming disruptive to some people. They're not supposed to be riding their bikes on the 500 block. They're supposed to be riding them. Mike Jordan was down there. He referenced that he witnessed them flagrantly doing wheelies in front of the ambassadors. And he didn't understand why this was being allowed. And he made a comment that maybe the ambassadors should stick a stick into the spokes of these people who are driving by or riding by. And obviously it's Mike. He's joking. He's very loose. He's honest. What?
He's being an old white guy troll is what he's doing.
I mean, yeah, he's just speaking without much of a filter. So that's how he's talking. But this comment sparked Oscar Gutierrez to then say, Councilman Gutierrez to say, this is offensive. He said he's not a parent, but he can imagine parents would be offended if they knew somebody wanted to stick a spike into their spokes. I guess these are largely youth. They're young people, according to Gutierrez. And
like 14, maybe. They're not even close to like adult age, to be honest.
And I guess many of them are people of color as well, although the pictures I saw showed a wide array. So he was saying that this was offensive, and then he took it a step further and said that mask enforcement potentially could be equivalent to Santa Barbara's version of stop and frisk. And I think he lost a lot of people there. And that was another
Well,
thing.
at least
that
he
sort
didn't
of
say it was the Gestapo. I guess he could have.
So there's these exchanges that are going on over, at the end of the day, what is a really simple issue, which is how do we get everybody to wear masks, whether it's 90%, 80%, or whether that range varies. How do we get everybody to wear it? Since the one thing that most people can agree on is like basic common sense. If you're sick and you have something covering your face, you're going to reduce the chance of spreading it. So
Yeah.
I don't know why it gets so complicated after that.
Well, I wonder, and I hate to talk about process, but Delaney, you've covered a lot of public meetings. What did this meeting go on for, like 8 hours or something? What was your impression of how Mayor Kathy was helming the meeting, how she was running the meeting? I mean, my sense is it's like completely out of control.
Yeah, well, I would agree, but I mean, I don't think that's new for this meeting. I think in general, I don't know. I don't want to. I'm not talking badly about the mayor. I just think that meetings, especially, you know what, actually, to give her a fair shot, I think in any public meeting right now, ever since COVID, they've been kind of run poorly because it's really hard to
because of Zoom
virtually. Yeah, it really is, honestly, and it's really hard to control public comment. It's gotten worse. I think that city council meetings have been, compared to county meetings, much more out of control and poorly run. But it's harder. It's harder with Zoom. I think the only person who made a comparison in that meeting that made sense, I think it was in Josh's story, actually, was Snedden's comparison that if you walk down the street without pants on, that's going to be stopped. The cops are going to talk to you. You're going to need to put your pants on. This is just another article of clothing. That is the one thing, like, that is a good comparison for enforcement.
Of course, if you're on Zoom, you don't have to put your pants on. So there, no, I think you're right about the Zoom thing because, people don't have to leave the comfort of their house. They don't have to schlep down to City Hall and wait and blah, blah. They can just get on there.
A lot more comfortable going crazy.
But
well, I mean,
I got to get a handle on this.
No, I totally agree. I agree. I'm just trying to give her the benefit of the doubt that this is definitely an added challenge in every meeting.
Just Jerry, obviously, anytime you lead a meeting, one of the roles of the chair is to sort of organize people and rein them in. And she doesn't do that. It's whether it's her or anybody else, you need somebody to provide a little bit of guidance to these meetings. And she doesn't. She just sort of lets them go on and 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 on. And it feels that way when you're covering these meetings.
Yeah,
and
sure.
That's not a judgment of her skill or character. It's just like when you are chairing a meeting, that is your job.
Well, it is. Let me just make one point. I mean, it is in this sense, and it goes back to the piece you wrote a couple months ago about how among the 7 council members is everybody for themselves now. So it seems to me what she's not doing is having the political skill to say, well, what I hear you saying, Megan, is this and that, and sort of trying to draw the issue a little bit more clearly.
Everybody loves Harriet Miller. They go back to her as sort of the model for how a mayor ran a meeting.
That was before, what do you mean everybody? That was before Delaney was born. You're getting old.
Well,
gosh. I was actually going to ask you what year Harriet Miller was the mayor.
Well, for the record, Jerry, it was before I worked at the News Press, too.
But it wasn't before you were born.
No, it was not. Moving on.
All right. What were you going to say? Real quick, Delaney, were you going to make a point there on?
Oh, I was just going to say it was kind of a joke, but I was kind of kidding that she knows how to do that, right? I mean, we saw her with Jason Dominguez cut him off constantly if he went on TV.
Yeah.
So it's not out of her skill set.
All right, let's go to the schools. The Santa Barbara Unified. Couple things. One, my independent morning newsletter this morning had a personal note from you, Delaney, about seeking people, parents who are doing education pods with their kids. And you're working on a cover story about that for next week?
Yeah, it's going to be out on Thursday. That was a little last minute note, trying to get maybe one more family. But I am looking into a phenomenon that's happening. It's happening across the United States, and it's not like this didn't exist before the pandemic, but it's kind of started to blow up. They're being dubbed pandemic pods. And it is basically like a micro school. Parents are couple families are merging together with like maybe between 3 and 7 children. And they are homeschooled all together as one group, and they're called a pod. And the parents agree, and they're like, pods are like snowflakes. Some pods have credentialed actual teachers that are hired to teach their kids. Sometimes it's parents who take turns playing the role of a teacher and just buying curriculum from online resources.
So they don't need any approval from the school district to do this or anything. It's a very informal, ad hoc kind of thing.
Yes, and some people are staying enrolled in their local schools and using that curriculum and using the distance learning, but just merging families together.
So are they not going to use the distance learning then?
Some are, some aren't. That's, like I said, these things are literally like snowflakes. Everyone is different, but they have the same unifying theme, which is like very mini schools, like no more than like 7 children, and that is the whole school. So that way they're constantly getting socialization 5 days a week, but they're not being subjected to a larger group of kids. It's just going to stay just those kids, only see those kids, they only socialize and do academic work.
But aren't they going to get called out or busted by the district for the kids not doing the online stuff? That I thought they were tightening the requirements for check-in and taking attendance and stuff.
Yes, well, that's the thing. That's true. But many of these groups are actually disenrolling entirely and
Really?
getting their own curriculum, or hiring the teacher who may be taught at a private or a charter school. So they already have a curriculum that they can bring to teach with. Yes. So a lot of people are doing that, and that's what starts to get these really expensive, and that's where the equity issues come in.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, it seems to me this is sort of, it's all. I'll bet you that these are overwhelmingly white parents who are doing this, and
yeah, at least the ones that cost money. But then again, like I was talking to a pod in Goleta Union. I haven't met the pod in person yet. I don't know if they're all white, but the only payment is a small meal stipend, and then the mom who is heading this thing, she's not an actual teacher, but the mom, since she has young preschool age kids, the other parents have to pay for childcare for her preschoolers while she teaches all of the first grade kids. But that's it. It's a very small stipend per month just to pay for a little meal stipend and a portion of the childcare. So there's more equitable options, but then that group isn't getting a real credentialed teacher to teach them, and they're getting a lesser quality education. So it's still very inequitable.
Yeah. So Josh, Laura Capps announced she was running for re-election. We haven't heard from Jackie Reed or Wendy Sims Moten. I guess there's some other people that are running as well. You got anything new on the school board race other than Laura getting in?
Well, I'm planning to wait until everybody's in and the deadline to do sort of a story that looks at all the candidates. Delaney's really sort of way more knowledgeable on the school board race than I am. Obviously, Laura announcing she's running is a big deal. She's going to be pretty much a shoo-in for re-election because she's well known. Obviously, her last name is incredibly well known, and then she served 4 years, so people know her, and then she's just coming off a campaign. So,
well, but the key question is, will she get the Democratic endorsement? Given the fact that she went after Doss, and there's still some bad feelings about that. You hear anything about what the great leaders of the county committee have in mind?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really poked around. I sort of would feel like they would endorse her, maybe sort of just begrudgingly, as maybe as part of a slate. Is there anybody better? It is school board. It's not like she's going to go challenge Kathy Murillo for mayor. That would be a much harder sort of endorsement. I feel like they can probably find a way in the middle to back her. And if they don't back her, I mean, Laura's a card-carrying Democrat. I mean, she ticks all the boxes for what a national Democrat cares about. So if they don't endorse her, that's probably a reflection on the party.
Yeah. So Delaney, you insisted last week that Fair Education is going to have somebody to put up the more conservative. You hear any more about who that might be?
I'm gonna ask, because to be honest, I haven't asked, but I can say, well, Brian Campbell's running, and
Really?
yes, he's running, and there is
Brian,
another.
Brian
Yeah.
Campbell is running for school board.
Yes, he is. Welcome
Wow.
to the beat. And then Sebastian Antonio Fernandez Falcon. I'm not sure who that person is, but they are on the unofficial list. Moni DeWitt's on the list, so I know that she was bringing it to the attention of how expensive it is to actually.
10 grand.
Yeah, she found the money. She's on the list. And then Laura Capps, obviously. I know that there's going to be a great candidate whose name I can't drop, from Montecito Union, who has actual background working with school budgets and knows how school districts work. And then there is probably going to be Wendy and Jackie. I mean, they don't reply for comment. But
Josh, why did you say wow about Brian Campbell? You and I covered him in the great District 2 City Council race.
Well, he did really well in the city council race for somebody who literally came out of nowhere and had a very narrow platform. And to think he's going to run for school board tells me he's somebody who's serious about wanting to serve, and he might have a shot at winning. I mean, if all of the conservatives got behind just one candidate, I know you can vote for more than one, but if they all got behind one, they could get somebody on there who would definitely make the meetings more interesting when it comes to the equity issues. So I did not know he was planning to run. He definitely would have a shot at winning if he did.
Well, and the other, I mean, I've seen some emails that he sent to members, and also I believe he testified about opening up the schools. I mean, he's a real open it up now kind of person. So that could be another. Hey, did you get this email from Cammie from Cammie?
About the Teachers Association?
The Teachers Association, and that they've reached an agreement and stuff.
Yeah.
The thing I didn't understand, because Laura was very stern about, we got to have the teachers in the classrooms. Teachers belong in classrooms, but it looks like they have the option to not be in the classrooms now. Why is that an issue? Do you know?
Why is that an issue? Because some teachers don't feel safe being in the classroom, so they want their own option.
At home.
Because I mean, we've heard so many different stories. Everyone has their own unique stories, but a lot of people either are immunocompromised themselves, especially the older middle school and high school teachers. They tend to be older and actually older as in at risk for
COVID. Older.
Over 65, Jerry. More at risk for COVID, or they live with someone who's elderly, or like I remember hearing a teacher saying that he has a newborn baby at home, and he read that 1 out of 10 babies get COVID, so he doesn't feel comfortable teaching. I don't blame him. So teachers have to have a choice. It's not fair to force them to go somewhere.
I think that part of the deal too is we're talking about a teacher being able to teach in a classroom by himself or herself. And teachers prefer that because they have all their tools there, and that's where they're comfortable talking and lecturing and being able to reach their kids. And I think part of it is they want the ability to be able to have all the tools that are in that room rather than lecturing from their home office. So I think that's a big deal for teachers to have that option.
And it seems like it would make, if kids ever do get to go back to school, it would just make an easier transition to just, okay, now we can start bringing kids in and stuff. Delaney, what was this weird story about people getting seeds in the mail? What's that?
So weird. It's a national thing, but it's come to Santa Barbara County, and so our Ag Commission sent out a notice about it. They're these seeds, and they come in these little packets that look like they're labeled as if they're jewelry packets, and they come from China. The return address is somewhere in China, and people are getting them, opening them up, and then they're discovering they're not jewelry, they're seeds. And so the Ag Commission is warning people, don't plant these, and also don't throw them away, because they are a potentially invasive species that can really damage the environment.
Anybody know what it is? What are they?
No, they're still trying to figure it out, but they believe it's some kind of invasive species that's going to destroy the environment and everything growing around it. And so you can't even throw it away, or it'll grow in the landfill. So keep it with you, and then call your closest office and have them pick it up if you get it. And they're only sending it to homeowners. Interesting.
Josh, there are a couple of stories on the housing beat. We got 5 minutes. Real quick. So this project on West Carrillo and Castillo, I guess it is that for the missing middle?
Yeah, this is a really significant big project, because the Housing Authority typically has built housing for seniors, for very low income people, and for veterans. And now they're trying to build a very large project for people who are in what's known as the missing middle. So earn between 80 and 120% of the average median income. And that varies depending on how many people you have in your family. But it's sort of like that people, a family who makes $85,000, like a two-person household. It's like way too much to be getting government subsidy, but it's not clearly enough to be buying a house in Santa Barbara. And so they're trying to address that issue. They're doing it at the corner of Carrillo and Castillo. The last time they proposed this, they proposed tiny homes for that lot. And the people who own houses on that block came out of the woodwork and just trashed the Housing Authority. Of course, they would say they just had lots of questions about it, but they were very much not wanting homeless people to be housed in tiny housing units. The city had gotten a grant, and they had thought they would have more money to build these things. It turned out they didn't, and so they abandoned the project. But now it's going to be an issue of high density housing, and something's going to get built there. The Housing Authority is going to build it, whether it's 103, whether it's going to need more parking. That site is going to be apartments, and it's going to be studios. It's going to be 1 and 2 bedroom units. And the idea is, hey,
is there going to be as much opposition to this as there was to the tiny homes?
Yeah, there will probably be opposition to it, not necessarily because of the overt, or I should say sort of underlying issues people have with that type of population, but more of parking. The fact that there's only 62 parking spaces available, or no, 52 parking spaces available for 103 units. And so where are these people going to park? Of course, people have visitors, people have family, they have friends, they come to visit, they're going to park on the streets. If you live on that block of Castillo, there's no parking as it is. So that's always going to be an issue. And the Housing Authority is saying, hey, we're going to target people who don't want cars and who want to walk downtown or use public transportation. So it's that whole thing of the theoretical of how we want people to live versus how people really live. So yeah, there will be some conflict on that issue, but the housing is something that generally the community supports. So something's going to get built there.
Yeah. Say, Delaney, I was confused by, you did this piece on the Boys and Girls Club that had to shut down temporarily because there was some kid that got a false positive COVID test. So, but I was just, what's the kind of the physical setup there, and how is it different than it would be in a classroom. That it, the club is kind of operating on all cylinders. It looks like.
Right. Well, the club only has one clubhouse open during the summer right now, and it's that Canon Perdido one. But they're still, the kids are still socially distanced.
They're wearing masks.
Yeah, they're wearing masks. They're socially distanced. Actually, Michael Baker said that the public health department was really, really pleased with their procedures for COVID. But they had gotten a call from the kid's parent that the kid had COVID, so they had to shut the whole club down. And so I had written the story, and then about 5 minutes before it was about to get published, I'd gotten a call that it was actually a false positive. So then I had to rewrite it. So that's kind of how that story ended up happening. And now they're back reopened. And actually what they're doing, I'll add really fast because it's great, is for kids who don't have parents at home this upcoming school year, who are going to be enrolled in the public schools and are doing distance learning, they are going to be opening their facilities up for the entire school day, so kids can have a place to be all day with adults who can help them.
Will they be able to do their online classes there?
They'll do their online classes there with the Boys and Girls Club staff.
Do they have computers there?
Yes, and they will set them up and help them out. So that's gonna be great. They need more funding, so but I think it'll come through. But that's their plan, is to be able to help those kids who aren't gonna have a mom and dad at home to help.
All right. So Josh, what were you more outraged by this week? The beer pong scandal at the Rose Garden, or the closing of Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf on State and Dayland?
Well, Jerry, you and I both have a lot of great memories at the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, but I was disappointed because it's another business that is closing because of the pandemic. They're not a local business; they're a chain. They're obviously struggling independently of all that. But it's another place where people cannot go, and so where are they going to go now? I think that Anna Marie Gott is really. She raises a lot of good issues. She brings issues to the council that people really need to know about. I'm not saying I endorse everything she says, but she's basically good. We all need an agitator. It makes us sort of think, it pause, stop, question what we do. And she is that for the city council. And she took pictures of people playing beer pong at the Mission Rose Garden.
Without shirts on. No way.
Without shirts on.
Or
and
yes, more important.
She basically
she
asked.
Did have pants, though, I think.
So, that's probably a little much. It's not an invasion of privacy because they're in public, but you really shouldn't be snapping photos and sending them off unless you're going to have the guts to go up and talk to them, which she didn't. But the point is, there are people who are not wearing masks in public places closer than 6 feet, and she's trying to raise that issue. So I think she kind of made some sense, at least sort of in the macro level on that one.
All right, guys. Thanks. Thanks for your time. We'll do it again next Friday, and stay safe out there.